Welcome back, everybody, to another great episode of Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. I'm your host, Dr. Marc Liechtung, and today we are sitting with a legend. He's a pioneer, but to me, he really is one of the legends in dentistry. When I see him around the shows, it's somebody I actually do point out to somebody who's with me, but that's the guy that started 1-800-Dentist. That's the guy that brought marketing in a big way to my life and made me realize that not only do we have doctor, staff, but marketing. Wow. A service that revolutionized how dental practices connect with patients. He's also a best-selling author, keynote speaker, expert in consumer behavior, glanding, and the ever-evolving dental marketplace. And don't you know that dentistry is being hit by an enormous amount of Facebook people wanting to get into our business, asking us to use. But in today's episode, we're going to dive into patient expectations. Have they changed? Are they the same? What marketing looks like in the years to come, but especially in this year. We're just finishing Q1. We're into Q2. Let's try to get knowledge from Mr. Joyal on what we can do. But before we get started, I wanted everyone to ask to please take a second, like, subscribe, and share a podcast with your friend or colleague. I'm hearing that people are enjoying our content. I mean, who wouldn't? We had guests like Howard Ferran, Gordon Christensen, Chucky Cohn, or Chuck Cohn, like I call him. And just, we have great episodes, but Fred Joyal today, amazing. So please tell a colleague. It really helps us grow and bring you the best of dentistry. Really does. And without further ado, I just want to say welcome, Mr. Fred Joyal, and thank you.
Marc, thanks very much. That's high praise, and I'm very excited to have this conversation because we are living in the fastest paced marketing universe that has ever existed, and it's impacting dentistry just like it's impacting every other industry.
That's right. And so let me ask you something. I have to, because to the listeners, 1-800-Dentist was truly years ago in late 1980s, maybe, late 1980s, maybe you can help me, early 1990s, but 1-800 we started, 86. I just got out of dental school and a year later, right? Out of my fellowship, I'm in a practice and 1-800 was amazing. I want to rewind and just talk about what made you do that? What inspired that idea?
It was two things. I had what we would now call a holistic dentist. But that's not what he was called then. But he was way ahead of the curve in all sorts of things. He was anti-amalgam way before, and I think the ADA still thinks they're fine. But I mean, he was way ahead on all of this stuff, and the way he would treat the tooth when he removed the amalgam, and he was using a rubber dam to make sure none of the amalgam mercury went down your throat, which all very different. And I just had this thought, like, how would anybody find this guy? Yellow Pages? He didn't have a Yellow Page ad, and they wouldn't have known what they were looking for. And then coincidentally, a guy I had worked with early on when I first moved to California, he had a little startup business, and he had a moment of brilliance when 800 numbers were coming out, and he grabbed 800-Dentist and let it ring to his house for like 6 years. And he saw me years later working in the advertising world. I was, an advertising copywriter. I was making TV commercials, radio spots, and print ads and all of that stuff. And I was also involved in how they bought media and spent the money on television and radio. And he said, I think you could turn this into a business. And I said, yeah, I think so too, but I don't want to work with you because you don't work. And so I had another friend of mine who was a stockbroker, Gary St. Dennis, who's a good friend of mine. And he just said, let's do this. Let's try this. And so I wrote a bunch of radio commercials. We would go practice to practice, playing these radio spots and saying in LA, and to the individual dentists and say, we're going to start advertising this. Do you want to be on board? We probably went to 200 practices before we found 18 doctors to go along with it. And interestingly enough, one of those doctors was Bill Dorfman. He was like dentist number 6. So we have a lifelong relationship as he developed Discus Dental and became part of the most famous.
I must tell you, Bill was helpful in, when I launched Snap-on many years ago, Bill also adapted, and we became somewhat, I'm not going to say friends, but we became, colleagues and liked to talk to each other back then. It was interesting to me that 1-800-Dentist had this, to your credit, at the beginning, it really, and I don't know what transpired to it, but it had a credential hurdle that you had to do and meet before you were accepted. I mean, they'd ask you schools, years in practice, but they asked them, it wasn't just sign a form and you're in. And I really enjoyed that. And hearing guys like Bill Dorfman were on it, or people in that ilk of quality dentistry and fee for service, it made us gravitate to it. It was a great thing. What was some of the early struggles when you were introducing a marketing plan like this, that it was a call center, something we've never had in dentistry, and we're pretty old-fashioned type of profession? Any pushback? I'm not going to do this, bad, or?
Well, I'll talk about one thing right away. Is the number one problem that we had at 800 Dentists was what the practice did with the patient that we gave them, the referral. Because we were running, at peak, running $25 million a year in television advertising. And nationwide, and serving dentists in every city, and running a 24-hour live call center, 365. We would take calls Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and around the clock, 3 a.m. And we estimated that 50% of what we gave to the practice as a patient would be wasted primarily by the receptionist, because she's underpaid, under-incentivized, and undertrained.
But you weren't recording calls then, were you? I don't think we had that technology.
No, but eventually we did, but much, much later. And LaDonna would call me and say, this isn't working. And we'd say, here, let me play a recording of what Angela says. She is repelling patients with what she says, and you've trained her to do it. You said, make sure they've got money. Like, you can tell that over the phone. Like, everybody's got a cash reserve for what they want to spend on dentistry.
You send me your financial statement before you make an appointment. But that's a great behavior problem back then with the staff, but that is a huge issue with marketing and dentistry. We're not the gatekeeper, and neither is the marketing company, but what are some of the mindsets you had in the 80s and 90s with patients calling? And do you see that similar, or is it totally different today with social media? Are they coming more prepared? Do they have more knowledge? I think patients are more knowledgeable today.
But they have the resources. There's no question. I mean, back then, Yellow Pages was it for many years, but we knew if your license was valid, we knew your hours. We knew, all the services that you offered, all the insurance plans that you took. And we knew if people liked going to you because they would call us and say, this doctor was amazing. I've been afraid of the dentist for 20 years, and I found her and she is amazing. I'm suddenly comfortable. I look forward to going there. And this becomes part of the file. We were essentially Google and Yelp way before they both existed.
And let's ask now, 1-800. I know you're not part of it anymore, but is it still in existence? And
I sold it almost 10 years ago now. But there's a guy who's running it just as an emergency business. That's the only calls he gets. And he direct connects them to the office. Like, there's no call center or anything like that. But it's still a small business, but I'll bet he's making really good money doing it. And he serves your need,
Oaks is one of the top 3 or 4 things patients look people up. Let me ask you, I mean, Fred, you've wrote a book. I mean, you're really an expert, or you become an expert in consumer behavior. You've said before that patient experience is the new marketing. You got to explain that to the doctors, to the listeners out there.
Well, they think the ad is doing 90% of the work. Okay. Oh, I've got an ad out there that says I go whitening for, $100 or $99, or I've got implants for $780. And all advertising can do, all a paid medium can do, is get them maybe to the phone or maybe to schedule. Everything else that happens is what turns them into an accepting patient. They are a shopper when they come through the front door, when they get an exam, when they get a prophy, still a shopper. When you're presenting the care that they need, which may be comprehensive, still a shopper. They are a shopper until they say, yes, I will do that and I can afford that. How do I
pay friendly? We as a team in our practices need to understand that they're a shopper. Pick up the little paper. Do the small things. That's what Fred's indicating to. I got to tell you, do you think there's a difference, just from your knowledge of consumer behavior, a difference between what I term a trusted and an untrusted? Trusted being a word of mouth, a friend, a wife, a husband. Do they overlook that experience a little bit? Is there a little bit of maybe, oh, I've heard this. I cannot take full credit for this, but I really dove into this with my practices. Like, every time you've got to be, as a practice, on. But sometimes people accept, I'm not looking for exceptions, but do you ever hear that a referral patient said they're still here to see the doctor who they were referred to? So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, if any.
So the basic thing is, and understand that this applies to almost every business in the world, and depending more and more how personal the service is. And the side note on that is, you asked, one of the first things that we learned is people have as much anxiety about finding a dentist as they do about going. We thought it was, most of their anxiety is actually being in the chair. No, it's that great unknown of, how do I pick a dentist? How do I know that I can trust him? How do I know that she's good at what she does? And so, just like every other business, you have to build value and you have to build trust. And what you're talking about is trust. We don't buy from somebody we don't trust. It doesn't matter how good they are or how clever their advertising is or how fancy the office is. And trust is a perception. Trust is many of these things are formed subconsciously by what do they see? What do they hear? And now, it's expanded, of course, by they can ask a friend, which is, let's put this out there. If word of mouth is not your number one source of new patients, you suck at one of two things: what you do or the experience of being in your practice. You could be an A+ clinician, but if you're not friendly and your staff is not friendly and the office doesn't feel comfortable, it doesn't matter how much CE you got. It doesn't matter how much technology you have, because they pull every chart in that practice, right? And not know if you're a B+, C- or A+ clinician. But will they know they trust you, or they know they don't. And so
that was a great answer, Fred, and it was a great suggestion, and that is the truth. I do want to get into the expectations of communications and of our communicative skills, and you alluded to it. You can only bring the cost to the water. You can't force it to drink. When you bring those patients to us, how much do you lay on or practice with? Do you put on communication skills of the doctor and the clinic and the staff and the clinicians, and as well as the convenience of having all specialists? Do you think that's a factor? And were you looking for that in the 1-800? I believe it was always a great plus when you had a periodontist on staff and you had a pedodontist on staff. It's sort of like convenience has become very important. Do you find that?
Well, this generation of person is looking for convenience everywhere they go. They want to drive through at their coffee place. They want to drive through at their cannabis place. They want 24 hours.
That is real California, everybody. That's a disclaimer. Don't just let that. Yeah.
I don't know how I know this. I've heard that they have drive-through.
You've seen it. You've heard it. You've seen movies. And
yes, the convenience is a huge factor, and a multi-specialty practice is the ultimate in service convenience to a patient. One-stop shop. I mean, we do this crazy thing where we'll start a procedure, send them to a specialist, and then the specialist can't finish it, and it's going to come back. It's 3 visits. And the patient goes, is this possible? You know?
Correct. Exactly. And I got to tell you, we talk about on Dentistry Beyond the Numbers all the time. And the docs that work for me and with me know that I believe in the dental hamsa, where a doctor today with vendor continuing ed, and you alluded to it, can be doing molar endos, can be doing clear aligners, crown and bridge cosmetics, surgical extraction, bone graft, and sync implants with surgical guides. Today, the GP can avoid any major problems, but really educate themselves to doing what Fred's saying, and that is convenience. It's convenience when you know you could treat and plan just about anything. And if you need to refer up the hall for something more extensive, you can. Let me ask you this. You said the phone. What are some of the other mistakes that you're seeing that, that dentists make, whether it be first impressions, either online or offline? What are you seeing in your experience?
Is that they don't always get that their greatest marketing tool is their team, because the team is creating the experience. You need people who like being there, believe in dentistry, believe in your dentistry, believe that it is the best investment that people could make, and communicate that. Everybody, not just the dentist, everybody's got to reinforce that fact that dentistry is a phenomenal long-term investment. I can never not doing that.
That is so perfect, because I tell all new docs that come into an office, you know who's the first people you need to impress? And they go, the new patients. No, your team. Your team, not staff. Your team. That's your team. And you need to make sure they know you're honest, you're efficient, you're painless as possible, and you're good. And once they know that, they'll talk you up. The new doctor is great. And you're so right in saying that. I think convenience is so important, but if convenience is brought with a grumpiness that doesn't really fit the bill, all of it's out the window. Sort of like what you just said is amazing. Team is the number one. What about technology? Do people want to see, do they have a scanner? Are they asking this? Do they know of this? And how important is it? And, do patients really pay attention?
And that's the interesting thing. There's a marketing aspect to this technology that if you ignore, you've wasted half the money on the investment. Because if you get a CBCT scanner, or you're using CAD/CAM technology or 3D printers to make mouth guards and all of that stuff, if everybody in your office can't explain why you have that technology in terms of why it's better for the patient, you've wasted half the money, because it is a tremendous marketing tool. You got a CBCT scanner and you say to a patient, this is the most powerful diagnostic tool in existence for dentistry. It is so much better than an X-ray that's 2 dimensions. I can see bone density. I can see, things up in your sinuses. I can see all of this stuff.
And height for implants and thickness. We cancel the remakes on implants, the taking them out and redoing of implants, or the implant failure is so much less now that most offices that are doing implants, to your point, has a CBCT. Anyone that wants to do what I'm talking about with the HAMSA must have a CBCT and learn how to do it with surgical guides. I got to tell you, Fred, I think this is the example I make of what you said about the phone. You know so much about dentistry, and you could talk about dentistry and just prove positive you're a marketer in dentistry. It's not like you're coming in and you're saying, technology, and you know the things that can sell and help. And those are the verbiage and communication. Let me ask you this.
And that's, let me just fit into CBCT. You show somebody a 3-dimensional video of their entire skull. They've never seen anything like it before. We process visual information 50,000 times faster than written information. That's the way the human brain works. If you're not using video in every way possible to market your practice, show off your technology, and communicate the importance of the treatment. But again, all that technology, what's the benefit to the patient? Most powerful diagnostic tools in existence. It's I love it because of this and this and all the technical stuff. Forget that. Tell them why they win with you.
Right. Really? Yeah. Really excellent points. Years ago for me, and still today, when I diagnose a case and treat and plan a case, I love a Panorex because it puts the whole mouth out, and I can literally, as a Polaroid, go tooth by tooth and explain it to the patient in the chair. I show the patients the CBCT for me is the most diagnostic for infections and bone density. But years ago, the pen was the most advanced X-ray. What is some of the outdated tactics? If you go and speak to dentists, what are they still using that makes you scratch your head? Is postcard still, would you recommend? I mean, what do you recommend or not recommend?
So direct mail is a very regional thing. It works or it doesn't work in your area. If you test it, you got to test it for 3 months. It's a substantial investment. What you have to understand is your digital marketing, your online presence is doing way more at patient education and trust building than you could ever do by yourself. So your website has to be modern looking, robust, have video testimonials from patients, have videos from you explaining your technology, your procedures, why you're unique in dentistry, what you believe in that practice. And they're going to be able to make an appointment online in that website, not just fill out a dang form that they put in their phone. And I'll tell you why you can't do that. And people go, well, that's all right. I just want their information. My people are going to call them right back. It's like, no, when they can't make an appointment online, you know what happens? They keep looking.
That's right.
And they make an appointment, they're done. And they're doing it. You know when they're doing it? 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. You're not open. You can't answer the phone. So again, we're circling right back to convenience. Now that's one key piece of it, of what I call the digital marketing triangle. Then you have reviews. If you don't have a steady stream of reviews that average 4.5 stars, you're in trouble because they're going to keep looking. If you don't have a social media presence that shows the experience of being a patient, not the clinical side and the services that you offer. What's it feel like to be a patient in your office? Patient testimonials on that site, community events that you go to, patient of the week celebrations, who's pregnant this week in the practice, whatever, because somebody's always pregnant, right? So it's like,
with the HR going around, I may leave that one out, Fred, but I like all the others. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to leave the pregnancy. Not sure if they're showing, telling, but
yeah, but I mean, just to let give the team a presence. So that, because they could check all 3. They'll say, I found you on your website, or somebody recommended, because that's what happens. Somebody recommends, word of mouth turns into word of thumb, where they go, yeah, my friend recommended you. And then I went and watched a bunch of videos by you on your website, and I really feel comfortable. That allows you to build trust. The Facebook builds trust. The review builds trust, and it builds value. If they don't value it, they're not going to pay what you want to charge. So your digital presence does a tremendous amount of heavy lifting, and you have to invest in it, and it has to be updated, has to be fresh.
That's great. I got to tell you, let's step into the world of, this is most of your advice. I mean, is obvious for the private practitioner. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I really want to dive with you into the DSO versus that Main Street doctor. That Main Street doctor who started a practice and they want to listen to your pearls of digital online marketing, but that big bad wolf, or what we call the group dentistry, is up the clock with a big banner sign, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, come in, come all. How do we, as new doctors, middle-aged doctors, younger, how do we compete with that if we're not ready? Or should we be ready in your mind as a lifer? I mean, what's your opening lob as that question goes? What do I do?
And we touched on it, is that the greatest defense against DSOs, and there are good DSOs and bad DSOs. I don't have judgment. I don't put them all in one bucket. But your greatest defense as an individual practice is the multi-specialty practice. You're solving everything for them. And understand that for a certain percentage of the population, care matters more than the cost or the pseudo convenience of a lot of DSOs. But if you don't be open 35 hours a week and answer the phone 35 hours a week, and that's the only way they can make an appointment, that will strangle your practice to death. Like, perfect example. I knew two dentists came right out of school, UOP, opened a practice in the North Beach area of San Francisco. They opened from 7 to 7, Tuesday through Saturday. So they were closed Sunday and Monday. She worked 7 to 1. He worked 1 to 7. They did no marketing except talk about their hours. That practice was full. The schedule was full by the end of year 1. And nothing else except convenient hours. And so you don't have to work all the magic. You don't need every patient. You need 2,000 patients to run $1 million practice easily, comfortably. And with people who will say, I love these guys, they're young guys, they're great, and they're open on Saturday. People go, Saturday? That's fantastic. Female dentist? That's fantastic. Like whatever the heck it is, they're talking about it. You have to create a remarkable experience in as many ways as possible so they talk about you.
It's another great line, but I got to tell you, I think, again, that's what I talk about in a way of dentists matching dentists to enhance the practice by procedural matching. If the general dentist that's bringing you in and you're looking to take over doesn't do implants, doesn't like clear aligners, whether it be, the Invisalign, Clear Choice, or OrthoBrain, but, whatever you're doing out there. But if you're bringing these things into practices, to your point of having more modalities, maybe a private practice can offer sleep and the DSOs, I just think there has to be a separation because, the other myth is this, and I did want to ask you this question. When it comes to dollars spent, DSOs versus, there is sometimes, and I've been part of groups, that the spending of a group doesn't really grow that much. I mean, they can, but they just don't. Do you find that, or do you find they're just spending like drunken sailors to wash out? I find Main Street dentists, I spent more on my practice in marketing when I owned it outright than when I sold it to a group, and they put marketing in. They immediately think, they're by number, they'll bring people in. I don't know. But do you find that, or is it always more money spent by the DSO?
The larger DSOs, the ones that are branded, are different than the ones that each individual practice has its own name, because you can't market it that way. So if they are branded, whether it's branded in that city or they're pretty much nationwide, then they can spend on TV, which is harder and harder and harder to get an audience for, because that's not who's watching TV anymore. It's, you got to sell car, drugs, or burgers or beer. And it's on sporting events. It's on the news. That's it. Because they're not watching live. Most of the time, they're not streaming. They're streaming. They don't even see a commercial unless it's some kid with no money at all. He's watching Hulu with commercials because it's free. I'm like, that's not a patient. So, they throw a lot of money out there, but they also have live call centers processing the calls all day long. That's huge. And those people are trained. They got one job, get them in. And they do it. And they do that efficiently. If your receptionist understood that her job is a 3-word definition, get them in. Even if it's just to show them the practice, let's say, oh, look, I know we don't take your insurance, but the doctor's happy to do an exam just so you know what's going on in your mouth. You people who come here love it. Not going to charge you for anything. Come in and see the place. They may start at your practice that way, get an exam. They say, oh, geez, I really got to go to so-and-so. I got to go to this chain because they do their cleanings for free. Well, they go to that place and they get that experience, which if you are creating a remarkable experience, Now they got something to compare it to, and they don't like that other place. And they say, I'm coming back to you, or when I get money, I'm coming back to you. And that's all that matters. It's a long game. You got to play dentistry as a long game. There's nothing more valuable than a long-term dental patient. As they're going to talk about right you.
It's a young man and woman's job. Is that what you say? It's a profession for the young ones. I agree that for the docs that have been in it, like I have, and people have been in it 30 years and thereabouts, we need to gravitate to what's going on with technology and the computer and how much we could learn. But before we go on to a game we like to play, which is called Rapid Fire, I'm going to ask you a question. If you were a young dentist coming out, I got to tell you, everybody, Fred Joyal has just mic'd out some of these points. I mean, this has been really a lecture and I just said to myself, I'm learning so much here. I mean, understanding that is just one of the great reasons people do brand is they have power in marketing, and it makes it harder for a group that doesn't. And for us, some solo practitioners out there. But if somebody was coming out right now or starting a business right now, double down on one thing: relationship learning, just better that tech, patient education. What do you think is the most important, or are they all just important?
I would hate to say that there's one really important thing, but if you're just starting out, you don't have any reviews. So you've got to build that. So every patient that comes in has to get like a comprehensive experience, not necessarily comprehensive dentistry. They have to feel so cared for that they can't resist talking about you. And when they talk about you, they do it online, which is likable and searchable and shareable and undeletable. And that's huge. That transforms word of mouth into something permanent. You got to ripen every one of those people that you get in and say, look, I'm going to tell you, it's my professional requirement and personal commitment to tell you exactly the care you need to have your optimal oral health. You may not be able to afford that right now, but I'm going to keep reminding you so that when you do have the money, we get you there, because that's my job.
That's great. So let's play a game. We've had you for a long time, and it's been great. So thank you so much, Fred. And I'm excited to play this, and just really, it keeps going. But let's do. I'm going to call out some things. It's called rapid fire suggestions. I'm going to say something.
I hope I pass.
Yeah, no, you'll pass. Let's start with one book every dentist should read in the next 3 months.
I hate to say it, but if you haven't read my book, Becoming Remarkable, How to Create a Dental Practice Everyone Talks About.
Wow.
That is the manual for how to build that experience and communicate that experience in the digital world, how to create that communication with the patient and how to get them to do that so that you have digital word of mouth just flowing into your practice.
Wow. Awesome. And the name again is
Becoming Remarkable. You can get it on Amazon. It's in hardcover, it's in Kindle, and it's in Audible with me reading the book. And have everybody on your team read it too. Say we're going to read a chapter a week, and then we're going to talk about how we bring this into the practice.
And everyone on our team should buy a book, right, Fred? I mean, come on. Everyone buy it. No one share a book. Buy a book.
Yeah, and they should have their own book that they're going through. This is how you create the remarkable team that everybody knows that their job isn't just to suck spit or sterilize instruments or clean teeth. It's to attract more patients. Every role has a marketing element to it. And if they don't want to do that, you need to invite them to work somewhere else.
That's fantastic. I like that. What happens if I say 1-800-DENTIST to you? What's in your mind with that experience of yours? I've always meant to ask you.
We had 250 people working there, and it was just a great place to work. We created a culture because my partner and I wanted a great place to work. And what happened is that got projected over the phone. The fact that they loved working there was suddenly this friendly, compassionate voice on the phone. And it converted more people into accepting patients because we became the first impression of your practice. And they went, wow, if there's anybody like you, I want to go see them. And you know what? You say, all that matters, it doesn't matter how long they go, I haven't been to the dentist in 10 years. And we say, that doesn't matter. What matters is you called us now and you're going to love this practice and you're going to start to take care of yourself. And that's what we care about. And, we had people working there. My last month at work, we celebrated 3 25-year employees. And the business had only been around 27 at the time. Culture was everything in that plastic.
What's your favorite marketing tool or platform? Fast forward to this year, 2025. How it's changed in almost 35 years. So tell us, what's your favorite tool this go around?
I think a properly engineered website is still the most powerful marketing tool because it's what's going to get offered up in Google. And you have to have a marketing agency that understands all of the ins and outs of what makes Google happy. SEO is critical. Don't let anybody tell you that SEO is over or that's it.
Now, my next question, Fred, is what we hear. I got to ask you, is SEO dead?
It is so not dead. It is that's like saying Google's dead. What Google offers up is dead. It's all ChatGPT now. No, it isn't. They've got their own AI. They're not going to fall asleep and let ChatGPT roll over Google. Everything's going to evolve more and more and more. But people are looking on their phones to try to find things. And then they go to your website. They're going to do more research. They may start on your phone, but then go to the website when it's something important that they want to spend more time on. And it's a mom, or it's the wife. It's a woman 90% of the time sitting down doing this work and telling a guy what to do.
What's a myth? I mean, is that the myth? Is there another myth in dental marketing? I mean, I don't believe anybody really thinks SEO is dead, but what's your myth? What do you think is the myth about dental marketing right now? What myth needs to die?
The myth is, and it goes to what some of them learned in dental school, is if you build it, so to speak, they will come. If I get enough CE, this practice will fill up with patients. That is just absolutely categorically not true. And that is a way to burn all your money on CE. Be great at what you do. Clinically, be a master. I love that. But the doctors who are passionate about staying right on the edge of their technique at all times. But if you're not marketing effectively, that won't make any difference at all.
I must tell you, that is so true. I mean, marketing is just, it is the science. And boy, you have really given us everybody, these are gems. Last question. It's been amazing, Fred. You really are very knowledgeable. And we're so happy to have you here on Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. I really am, because it's just been pearl after pearl. But if you can have every dentist that's listening, every staff member, team member that's listening, and come out with one idea and focus on that idea this year. One, you said the website. My website is good. What's the next idea I can focus on for the next 8 to 10 months that would make the biggest difference?
I'm going to say it in one word: video. Find as many ways as possible to capitalize on video. Record a patient video testimonial on a phone. Just a nice low production value, 30 seconds of that patient saying why they love you. Then also, every new patient gets a video welcome text from the dentist saying, I understand you're coming in on Thursday. I can't wait to meet you. And the whole team's looking forward to taking care of you. If you have any questions about your care in the meantime, shoot me a text at this number and I'll get right back to you. But otherwise, looking forward to meeting you on Thursday. You will have 0 no-shows at that point.
Does everybody out there want to hire Fred Joyal? I mean, did Fred Joyal just do something in the last 45 minutes? I mean, I got to tell you, that was absolutely a great answer, because you're right. Everyone, I'm captivated on my phone. If I have time, my my wife is shopping, if I'm getting, whatever, and I have time to look, the videos captivate us. The before and afters just make us go crazy. And you have given us so much amazing value. And I don't say that often. I mean, I say it a lot lately because I've been talking to some really special people. Dad, you are absolutely right there. This was fantastic. Fred, thank you so much for joining us. Was saying it's a master class before, but I'm telling you, I really, I wanted to take notes. So I'm going to have to rewatch this right now and write it down. But the history and the future of dental marketing to our listeners, thank you very much. And we had a great class today, a great podcast in how to build a great quality-driven, convenient, right, Fred? Anything else you want to part, please?
Remarkable practice.
There you go. I'm going to get his book. I hope you do too. Thank you so much, Mr. Fred Joyal. We've been incredibly lucky, Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. We had some phenomenal guests. Fred Joyal was a legend back when I was a young dentist, and he came out with this whole thing, 1-800-DENTIST. And even when I developed a product like Snap-on Smile and the plants, I thought of 1-800-DENTIST the way they did that. But just to see his passion and the knowledge that he has today in 2025. I mean, the SEO is not dead. You're talking to a guy who's a lifer, and you can hear it in his voice. I think we've learned so much today. We've learned that websites, right? On the phone, the introduction, everything. I'm on remote, but this has been an amazing podcast and something that we can really resort back to and listen to him. But listen, we should all read his book. Remarkable. That's what we're striving for. And I want to thank Fred Joyal for his time, his experience, his knowledge. And remember, like us, subscribe to me, subscribe to Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. We really want to bring, my goal is really to create these great dentists and I speak to so many of them, and we're going to have a couple of them talk about their journey through dentistry and how having the wherewithal of the dental hamsa, but to understand your finances, to understand the build of the practice, you have to understand your marketing and your marketing spend. Do not be that dentist that gets asked how many new patients you have a month and say, I'll ask Millie or Sharon. That is your lifeline. That is something you should know because you want to know your ROI. Great episode. Thank you so much for listening. This was Dr. Marc Liechtung, and I'll see you at the next Dentistry Beyond the Numbers. See you there.